Welcome to the My Tech Toolbelt podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Brenda. And this is a podcast where we highlight educators who innovate, engage, and inspire through the use of technology. So today, on the My Tech Toolbelt podcast, we share our recap of the Spring 2018 CUE Conference in beautiful Palm Springs, California. We cover who we met, what we learned, and a preview of who we interview in our next episode. Hope you enjoy it.
Here we are, home from CUE 2018.
We survived.
Brenda and I spent 3 days
Yes.
in March at the CUE conference, the Spring CUE conference in Palm Springs, California. March 14 was all the pre-conference event. 15, 16, 17 was all the actual conference. Amazingness, awesomeness,
Yes.
exhaustingness, all of the above. We had a great time.
We did. So now, Shannon, explain what CUE is.
CUE is a conference a long time ago in the 70s.
I think so, yeah. Well, yeah, because they just hit their 40th
They just had their
birthday.
40th, yeah. So in the 70s, they were actually called computer using educators. That's what CUE stands for, CUE. They've since lost that. They just call themselves CUE. They're no longer computer using educators as part of the name, but and that was strategic because innovative teachers are innovative teachers, and computers are almost a thing of the past as we've moved into like mobile devices and Chromebooks, and computers are great, but they're not everything that these educators are using. So they didn't want to limit themselves. So that's CUE, and they used to be just a California organization, and they moved to now be extended into Nevada. I guess there are affiliates in Nevada, and they're looking to continue to grow. So
Right.
It's an amazing network. I've been a part of the network probably close, I want to say 14 years now. When I started teaching, I stumbled across them, really, that they were not as big as they are now. And so it was fun to just kind of hang out with a bunch of like-minded educators and really share ideas. And now the conference is 5,000 or 6,000 people easily. I don't even know what the count was this year, but 2 years ago when I went, I think it was about 5,000 or 6,000 people, all at the Palm Springs Convention Center, all just geeking out on all this really great knowledge sharing and great sessions. The sessions were packed, the ones that we went to, and just a lot of great information was shared. It was a collaboration, running into old friends and new friends, making new friends. It was a great conference.
Yeah, and I think it's nice the way they set it up because it's not just sessions that you can go to, right? Besides having the vendor floor, obviously, but
which was huge this year. It was really
yeah. I know. I was trying to think and just sort of count on my fingers and toes how many vendors I talked to. It was a pretty decent number. I didn't see the actual vendor count on their website.
So this year is the first year that CUE went green,
Right.
as part of their new mission, and so there were no paper session booklets or maps, or one of my colleagues was like, "Where's my bag of stuff?" And they were like, "There is no bag of stuff." And he was like,
I can't.
so he went back to the hotel and printed out the 12 pages double-sided of the sessions. So I think in an attempt to use the app, there was an app, the SCED app,
Right.
and they were also just everything was trying to be as digital as possible. I really didn't get a feel for how many vendors were there.
Right. Because there's no list. I didn't see
no list.
I didn't see the
It probably
images.
was on the website somewhere.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
But we just takes a little getting used to.
It does. I'm still much of a paper, especially for a conference like that where I'd like to see where all the sessions are, where the locations are,
and the topics, like all we really got on the SCED was
the titles. Yeah.
And sometimes the titles are misleading. They're hooks. They're great hooks to get you in, but you have to kind of dig a little deeper. And it's a different mindset of just planning your time. And that took a little bit of getting used to.
Right.
Especially for some of the teachers who are not as savvy in that.
Right.
type of, or don't want to download something to their phone, or then your battery dies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you're always having to refer back to it. But and a map, I think, is so handy to know where is room Y-376. And
I think if anything, they were going to print a map, probably would have been the best.
Right.
Especially if you were new. Mm-hmm. So if you were a return user to Q, it wouldn't have been so bad. But if they could have just printed up a map,
right,
that would have been very helpful.
Yeah, or just had it part of the SCED, right?
A link, yeah.
Link. I mean, you could have accessed the website too as well on your.
Like I said, it caused a lot of battery drainage, and so if you didn't bring a portable charger, that. I went through almost two portable chargers a day because I was trying to use my iPad only. I was trying not to carry around my big laptop all the time.
Right.
So using my iPad and then my phone is kind of helping me navigate where I was going to go next.
Mm-hmm. And snacks. You gotta have snacks.
So there was food, an iPad, and portable chargers. So I felt pretty comfortable with what I had packed, but I know that there were people who were constantly looking for an outlet in the rooms that they were in. So, mental note,
right?
Bring portable chargers.
Right. But you also noticed too on the vendor floor, people weren't handing out buckets of information and leaflets, and
they really encouraged people to be more paperless. So scanning the badges became more important. As you saw, people were constantly asking, "Can I scan your badge? Can I scan your badge?"
Right.
And if you wanted more information, that was really the only way to get it.
Right.
Was for the vendor to follow up with you that way.
Right.
We did bring business cards. I brought both my university business cards, and I know you had the My Tech Tool Belt business cards. So we were constantly handing out business cards for people. And I think almost everyone got back to me within the following week. We've started to receive emails from the vendors. So I think that was very helpful. Yeah, there was there wasn't a lot of swag. This is the first year where I think I've come back with the least amount of teacher swag. Now, maybe I wasn't looking that hard, but I feel like usually I come back with a few t-shirts, a lot of paper, which I was kind of glad I didn't have a lot of paper, pens and pencils and things. And this year I came away with a pencil, a couple of pens, and
yeah, there are some things that I did not pick up that I saw, but yeah, you're right. There was not.
Portable chargers would have been a really good thing to give away at this event, for sure. And I think a lot of it has to do because they went green. I think that was that next year. I think portable chargers, we're going to see more of those if Q stays green.
Right. Also, on that same note, is the water. So
yes,
that was huge. Luckily, we had listened to was it Tosas Talking Tech? Tosas Talking Tech.
And so we knew that there was not going to...
Which was another podcast.
Another podcast, yep, that we listened to. Big fans. We're big fans of theirs. And we knew that there was going to be portable water stations. There wasn't water for sale.
No, they had no water bottles for sale.
They had biodegradable cups, and they had big fillers, big Sparklets or Arrowhead water bottle fillers stations where you could fill up your own water bottle. So they did encourage everyone to bring your own water bottle.
Right. And it worked out great because most people have those anyway nowadays.
Yeah, I think we're pretty self-conscious. But yeah, we brought our own Hydro Flasks. Plug for Hydro Flask. We brought our Hydro Flasks and just kept refilling at the filling stations. And especially in Palm Springs, it's so dry. It's the desert.
Right.
I couldn't get enough water.
I know.
I mean, I was just constantly, every meal I was drinking water, all the time I was just, you just couldn't get, I was chapped. My lips were chapped, my skin was chapped. Everything was really dry. So it's really important to stay hydrated. So that was really cool.
Yeah. Even though the temperature wasn't hot, it was still dry.
It was still dry. It was cold and dry.
Well, cold to us. I talked to some other people that were from Ohio and Canada and New York, and they're like, this is beautiful. I don't know what you're complaining about.
But it was windy.
It was, when you're going to Palm Springs, you sort of expect it to be 80 degrees.
80 plus.
Right.
Warm.
In the spring. And beautiful.
And
it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
But it was just a little cooler than normal.
We're spoiled.
We are totally wimps.
Yeah. I wanted
California.
Warm. Well, and it didn't rain while we were there.
Right.
So we got really, really lucky because it was supposed to rain while we were there. And so we did manage to spare the rain. And I think it was nice because I'm used to Q. This is the coldest Q I've ever been to in all of the events that I've gone to. And I mean, 2 years ago, you and I were sitting out by the pool post Q debriefing. So with bathing suits on, and we were in the shade, we were sweating, we had pina coladas. And and then this time it was like we had jackets on and heaters. And
like, I'm not going to the pool.
I didn't see the pool. Was there a pool?
No, there were people out by the pool, though.
They were crazy. They were by the pool fire pit.
That's true.
They were by the fire pit that was
true.
at the pool. And they were at the hot tub.
Because it was so windy, too.
It was so windy.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful.
It was gorgeous. It was gorgeous.
So Brenda and I divided and conquered.
We did.
I took my team from the university. There were 7 of us total that went to Q. And so we focused a lot on the content, the sessions, which were fantastic. We came away with great resources for English language learners, for administrators, for Google folks, for Apple folks, assistive technologies. Our Microsoft OneNote notebook is full of all of the sessions that we went to. And so we had a shared notebook that we just put all of everything in. And so...
Yeah, with 7 of you and going to multiple different conferences. I mean, not sessions. You guys covered a lot.
They did. We covered a lot of ground. And so we were fortunate enough to have a debrief the following week. And everybody just kind of shared some of their biggest takeaways. And then we put all the links in there to all the different sessions and notes and things like that. So it was fantastic. That was a really great event. It was probably the only time that our team will be able to do an event like that all together because there's so many other conferences that we'd like to get them out to. So it was really special for us to be able to get to do that. And we, like I said, we were able to cover so much ground, which is fantastic for not only the people that we serve, the schools we serve, and the teachers we serve, but our listeners as well, because we'll benefit, from 6 other people going to different sessions as well. I focused on a lot of administrator type sessions, things that administrators would be interested in. And then I had, some people focus more on technical Google and Apple products. I had some focus on English language learners and assistive technology. So everybody kind of just went to where they felt the most comfortable. Some sessions, we had a group text going. The session's too full, ditching it, grabbed the bit.ly off the screen and, left. That was the other thing, too, is Q typically is in 3 different venues. Historically, it's been at the Convention Center, at the Hard Rock Hotel, and at the Hilton, which are all walking distance. This year, it was only at the Hilton and the Convention Center. So the Hard Rock was eliminated as a venue. So everything became much more crowded, and they were enforcing... Like, no one could sit on a floor at a session. Right. If that session was full, they closed the door and put a sign on it. The session's full. No. And so they really enforced those fire codes, which is fantastic.
Right.
And for everyone's safety. But it also was kind of frustrating because people were lined up an hour before the session.
Right. And you don't know if you're going to get in.
Right. So
you're waiting there.
Right.
In anticipation that you're going to get in, but you don't know for sure.
Right.
If you're pretty far back in the line.
Yeah. So it was, that's, I think, the sign of a good session and the sign of a good conference is that.
Right.
And so multiple sessions, there were some people that were doing multiple sessions, but for the most part, we kind of would at least have somebody go in and grab a code, a bit.ly of the presentation or whatever, and at least grab the resources out of that. So it was a great opportunity. And then I know they have another conference coming up.
That's right.
So Q has 2 conferences a year. This is the big one in the spring.
In the spring, right, in Palm Springs. And then in the fall, they have it in Napa. Which is gorgeous.
I haven't been to that one, so, but that one's on a weekend only.
Right, I think for the first time.
Yeah, smaller conference. It's always been a smaller conference because it's in the fall.
So you don't need to get a substitute?
No subs, yeah.
Right, so if you're in that area.
Take a little extended vacation if you can and take an extra day and go through wine country. But yeah, it was great. We're excited to hopefully get to go to that one maybe next year, soon in the near future, and see what the difference is. I haven't been to that one ever.
Mm-hmm. Besides the sessions, they also had, what did you call that area?
Oh, they had poster sessions.
Right? And then they had also Q with coffee or by the pool and all these different little meet and greets.
Yeah.
That I thought were really nice to do because you could actually talk to in a smaller setting. Maybe you only have like 1 or 2 questions for someone, or maybe you want to meet the authors of.
They did do book signings.
Yes.
They had makerspace. I think a makerspace section. Playgrounds. They rotated the playgrounds too. The TOSA playground one day. They had the AR/VR playground one day, augmented reality and virtual reality playground, and then they had the STEM and STEAM like makerspace playground one day. So that each day there was something that you could go.
And then events at night.
They had the karaoke,
the parties,
the vendors have parties,
the affiliates.
The affiliate groups had their meetings and their elections were happening. All the board members were introduced at the main, one of the main meetings. They have 3 keynotes, a keynote every day. So there's never a shortage of anything to do. In fact,
awards, right?
Oh, they had awards. The other thing too is that I think what I explained to my team, and I would say this to anybody, is you can't go to everything.
Right.
Don't think you can.
No.
You're just gonna have to. There was one night where you and I were gonna go to a vendor event, and we ended up back at the hotel, and I was like, I am so exhausted. And one of our colleagues texted and said, the food's great at the event. Are you guys coming? And I snapped a picture of my feet up on my shoes were off, and I was like, this is not happening. Like my feet were just so tired from walking.
Mm-hmm. Another good tip: wear
comfortable shoes
and bring
different shoes. Yeah, if you can, because I only brought one pair of shoes, and that was what I had to wear all 3 days. And they were great on day 1, but by day 2,
morning, noon, and night. That's rough.
Man, it was painful. So and then. Great conference. So some of the things, Brenda, that you spent a lot of time on the vendor floor. So I did a lot of the sessions. You did a lot of the vendor floor, checking things out. What were some of the cool things that you took away from that?
Well, I mean, definitely one of my favorite things is just talking to the different vendors and finding out, what's your story, how long you've been around, how many different locations are you in, and I heard everything from like how many locations are you in, from 33, I think, to 60,000. It's like, wow, that's a huge difference.
Right. The new startups versus the well-established.
Right. And so what I've realized is these new startups, just because they're new and they are, they're just an emerging technology, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean that they're not liked. It just means that they're new, right? And so you have no idea what the next big thing is yet, right?
Nope.
And talking to these people, they're very passionate about what they do. They want to hear back from the teachers that are using the technology, and they want to get their word out there that this is new, but it's great, and you have to try it.
That's the thing too, is that this is one of the only ways that sometimes these small startups can get the word out, and so sometimes we skip them.
Yeah, right.
And we don't pay attention to some of it, but
because they're not the big names,
right?
The recognizable names,
right? And what we did see this time too are people who didn't typically have a booth before did now, because they've gained the traction or the momentum.
And some of the bigger names did not have a booth, which was interesting.
We were looking for certain people, we won't name names, but they were not represented there.
Right.
Which we thought was
surprising.
But,
I mean, it's fine.
Well, we saw a lot of really good new ideas.
We did. And I can't wait to highlight some of these. We're hopefully going to be highlighting them and talking to teachers that are actually using this technology, and it's going to be neat. Mm-hmm.
And just some of the new stuff that's coming out with some of the existing technologies. We were able to talk to a lot of vendors that I've used their product, or I promote their products and I endorse their products as an institute. We use certain products that work really well for our populations. And so I don't want to say endorse because we don't get any kickbacks or anything like that, but there are certain products that we know meet standards, meet the needs of the students, are differentiated, have the assistive technologies that we like, things like that. And so you
can recommend
those
them
are recommended, right? With confidence. And so I was able to talk to 2 CEOs.
I know, that was pretty nice.
Which was amazing. I've never really had that opportunity before. And we did get that recorded.
And not only CEOs. I mean, they're founders, right?
They're the CEOs
these are
and
the
founders.
guys that actually
these were the teachers
wrote the code.
who needed a solution to a problem.
Right.
Who who decided this was their solution, who all now is a company.
Right.
And they had booths.
And a well-known company.
Well-known. We're excited. We're going to have a special episode just dedicated to kind of those two
the founders
and interviews coming soon to a podcast near you. So that was fun. And then we talked to new startups and we talked to other vendors and things like that.
Right.
On the last day, we had a small window of opportunity of everybody gets kicked out of the vendor floor at noon.
Yeah.
And then the lady kind of goes around and is like, we're locking the doors at noon. So we were trying to hurry up and get as many recordings as we can that day. So that was fun.
Right.
That was Saturday.
And it's funny because like the day before I had tried to interview some teachers because I thought, this will be kind of nice. I'll interview just teachers and seeing what have you come away with from this conference? What's been the most takeaway? What's the things that's most impressed you? What were you looking for before you arrived? Anything. Just whatever you want to talk to me about.
How'd that go, Brenda?
Not so well.
So what was interesting was we thought that was a great idea.
Right.
When we brainstormed, we thought, man on the street.
Yep.
Woman in the trenches. Like,
right.
Let's just, what did you learn today that you're going to use in your classroom on Monday?
Right.
No one wanted to talk to you.
No. I'm like, is it my face?
Yeah, it's you.
Is it?
I didn't want to tell you, but.
My approach?
No.
Should I be offering candy? Like, what's the. Here's
Here's
a
candy.
little girl.
That's kind of creepy. What we learned when we talked to friends, when we were telling them that this was your experience, was why would you think we would want to talk to you?
Right.
Like, that's not. We're teachers. We're in front of a class for a reason.
Right. I got all kinds of excuses.
Yeah.
I don't talk to anybody that's over 10. I don't do any public speaking. I'm thinking
you're a teacher.
Except every day.
Right.
Other than that, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. They just weren't interested. They didn't want their voice to be out there on a podcast. I mean, you name it. And I tried to get people like as they were finishing their lunch outside, they're relaxing in the beautiful Palm Springs sun. I thought, I don't want to catch them as they're rushing to a session, but that still didn't work so well.
I feel like...
And I approached all ages, all demographics.
About 30 people.
30 people.
At least,
right, yeah. Groups of 2, groups of 10.
I think it takes a specific human personality to want to be recorded and have something to say.
Right. I did go up to one group and they said, the perfect guy just left.
Oh, yes. He's a phantom.
He would have definitely talked to you.
He doesn't exist. We're actually lying.
He's the unicorn.
He's a unicorn. No, and that's, I think there are people who are good and want to do that kind of stuff. And then there's people who are like, no, I'm fine. And that's just a personality trait. So we are looking for the unicorn.
Right. So if you see us at the next event, walking around with a microphone or a headset,
our headsets and our purple shirts,
we're not going to bite.
No,
hard.
Yeah, we're mostly painless. Mostly.
And I guess I need to rethink my line of what I'm going to say to people.
Yeah. The other thing too is we might need a hand microphone because the headsets might be a little intimidating. Although everybody we talked to that used the headsets were like, these are the coolest thing ever, because it eliminated a lot of distractions.
Exactly.
I was being interviewed. You got also.
I did get interviewed.
You get interviewed. I got interviewed, and we were interviewed by our friend Dave Lee. And we'll talk about him in a minute, but we had hand microphones, and so there was still a lot of external noise distractions, whereas the headsets kind of focus. You can really only hear the person talking, and yourself in the headset.
It makes it better when there's a lot of noise
going on
around.
So let's talk about Dave Lee.
Okay, so I think you need to start the story, Shannon.
So we kind of met on Twitter. Dave and I had corresponded via Twitter as part of this International Podcasting Day event. We had kind of connected, like, are you going to Q? Yeah, I'm going to Q. Let's meet up at Q. We had never met before, but we had followed each other on Twitter, and we hadn't launched our podcast yet.
No.
So he was like, he had sent a text message like, let's meet up at Q. And so you and I had talked. So I was like, I sent him a Twitter DM and said, hey, are you going to be around like tomorrow morning? Brenda and I can meet with you. So that went out, and I'm in a session because I'm in sessions. And while that was happening,
I'm on the vendor floor. I'm going to a AR, like a bus. They're all
You're on the
set
AR
up.
bus. Okay.
So the guy who's coming to let us into the bus, he says, okay, well, let me scan your badges. I'm like, I don't have a scan, sorry. This guy next to me says, I don't have a scan either. Oh. And so I look at him like, who are you?
So people who didn't have barcodes to scan were press.
Right.
That you had a press pass.
Right.
Versus the badges. All the other teachers and conference attendees who had barcodes were teachers or administrators or from a school site. So you're standing next to this guy who also is a press, and he says...
And he says, what do you do? I'm on a podcast. And he says, oh, I'm on a podcast. And I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. And so he goes, well, you know what? Let's talk, but let's go do the bus thing first, the AR, and then we'll come back out and talk. Okay, so I walk up into the bus, and he says, wait.
Does he get a phone call?
Yes.
Or a text message?
Yeah, text message from his co-host and says, wait, are you with Shannon? I said, yeah, this is strange. Okay, yes. Because we haven't really even told each other what podcast we're on yet. And so, I'm like, this is really weird. So anyway, we go in, do the AR, come back out, and then we start talking and realize that he does a podcast called Waves of Tech. Very small world, obviously, because now all of a sudden he knows Shannon and I know Shannon and
everybody knows
Shannon.
Everybody's 7 degrees of separation.
That's right. So it was neat. So he and I talked for a little bit and just talked about everything to do with Q and what we'd seen here and how many years he's been coming to Q, and his wife. Who's
a teacher, I think, as well.
Right, in the Central Valley of California. It was neat. He interviewed me for his show. I interviewed him for our show. We'll play that later.
It was really you guys were texting me. He was texting me like, I'm with Brenda right now. And like, you're like, get over here. I'm on the floor. And I was in a session. And so I was like, not just in a session, but I was like in the middle of a row in the middle of a session. So I like couldn't just get up and leave, but I managed to get over and talk with him and meet him as well. So there's some photos on our website for this episode and links to his podcast as well. So we had a great time meeting just other podcasters.
Right.
We did also get to meet the Tosas Talking Tech podcast. They were doing a live session. That was Tom and Mike, and they were doing a live. They had a poster session where they were recording live from Q. However, it wasn't a live podcast. They were recording. And so they released episode 1 this week, actually. And then they'll release there was a lot of audio that they took.
I would imagine.
Like us, I mean, I did one of their Manic Minutes sessions, so you can tweet that out when it airs. But it was pretty fun to just meet with them. Another set of podcasters that are a duo, which are just fun to listen to.
They are fun.
They were high energy. And their portable equipment was like the size of a small safe. And they were like, this is our portable stuff. And I was like, holy mackerel. Like,
what does your real setup look like?
Right. Whereas, Dave and us, we had very small pieces of portable equipment that we could carry in a backpack. And it was fun. We had a good time. And so between the vendors, the sessions, meeting other podcasters.
Yeah. Oh, and the Tosas Talking Tech, I think, were very instrumental for us. Before the conference, we had listened to their pre-conference to-do list. I don't know what it is. It's a checklist.
It was like a checklist.
It was, but it was great.
Yeah.
I would recommend that for anybody attending any conference whatsoever.
When that came out, I sent it to you. Mm-hmm. You had already actually found it on your own, which I thought that was made myself feel useless. But I sent it to you, and I sent it to my entire team to listen to, because I felt like a lot of the stuff they talked about was like, they talked about wear shoes, like what to bring your portable chargers. You're going to do a lot of walking.
Right. One of the tips that I thought was really well placed, especially for this year, is if you want to go to a session, have an alternate that's close by. Close
by for sure.
And that's so smart, because especially this year, because they didn't allow the floor seating that you really needed. Plan B.
Yeah, for sure. Because you didn't want to have like a session that was
too far
in another location, like literally at the other venue. And the other thing they said was what we said earlier: don't try to go to everything. Take time to debrief, which you and I did each night.
Yes.
And I encouraged my team to do that as well, to take time to debrief, put your notes all together, organize your thoughts, because you forget, right? You go to so many sessions and you're like, wait, what session was that? And who was the speaker? And blah, blah, blah. They did a pre-Q, an at-Q, and then an after-Q. They did a 3-session series, which I thought was really good. So I sent pre-Q to everyone. And then I think what to do to kind of get ready for Q, things to know. So it was good.
But definitely, I mean, my biggest takeaway, obviously, is just the connections, right, that you make. Invaluable connections.
Absolutely. The networking that happens. Well, you and I had hashtag big name.
Yes, that was a connection.
That was a huge connection that we were able to get from another friend of ours. By the way, they're going to have their own episode, a special extended edition episode, because we were able to spend a significant amount of time with hashtag big name and get a full interview. So that'll be coming up in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
About 2 weeks. So our next episode will be that full extended edition. I never laughed so hard. I wanted to just always be with this person.
I know.
As soon as they left the room, both of us were like, our minds were blown. Like we just couldn't believe the stuff that was happening. Like what we were talking about was just amazing. Yeah. It was
basically you turn on switch and then it just goes and
we
goes.
Didn't even really. I mean, we probably. I don't even know how many questions we had. Maybe 2 questions.
I think so.
Because the conversation just went
right,
and it was very fluid and very natural and very exciting and very fun. And we did not do almost any editing. I think there's zero editing in that. So you're getting 100% of this person authentically. Yeah. And they were okay with that when we told them, we sent an email saying, we're not cutting this. We're not cutting this up into 2 episodes. We just can't start to finish. Yep. I wish we would have hit record 15 minutes sooner.
I know, me too.
From the minute that person walked in the room, we're not even giving gender. We're just we're not gonna even, because we don't want anybody to know hashtag big name. But from the minute that person walked in the room, we should have just been recording everything that came out of their mouth, because it was phenomenal.
Right.
And I want to just listen to it every day to make me smarter.
I know.
So that was exciting. But today, to kind of complete out this episode, we're going to give you a little bit of what you and Dave talked about in your interview with him. So just quick snippets of kind of vendor floor specials that we talked to
that impressed us and there were a ton. Like if we leave anybody out, it's not on purpose, but these were the people that we talked to and made really good connections with. Was Classcraft, loved them. Talked to the CEO founder of Classcraft. Kublets, Formative, which is also GoFormative, Nearpod, Pear Deck, Qnero, Brainbird Technologies, GradeCam. Those were some of the ones that we spent some time with, and there were plenty more. The Microsoft place was phenomenal. The iReady was phenomenal. Some of the textbook vendors had great stuff. There was Lego was there. We saw some great STEM initiatives. A lot of the cart vendors were there, and the Xerox and Epson. There were some big names there. CDW. And so not to leave anybody out, but we were just the ones that I named earlier. We spent some time with those guys. Yeah. Picked their brain and challenged them.
And just made some connections with them. I think moving forward, we did get some snippets from them, and we will most likely have a dedicated episode in some fashion to some of those folks. Some of those pieces of technology, but and teachers that are using that. So that was exciting. So Brenda, you had an opportunity to interview Dave Lee with the Waves of Tech podcast while we were on the vendor floor. Let's introduce that interview.
Well, Dave Lee, he not only hosts the Waves of Tech with another co-host, but he also is in charge of the International Podcast Day, which is an organization that just wants to celebrate the power of podcasting. And so they started off as the National Podcast Day, and within 24 hours, they had already transitioned to the International Podcast Day. And he's a great guy, number one. So then I got to listen to his podcasts, and it's neat because they cover technology in all different realms. They talk about Uber and Lyft drivers taken out of Austin, Texas. They talk about robocalls onto your cell phone and how that's happening.
I can't wait to listen to that episode. I have it downloaded and saved.
Yes, all different kinds of things. And it's neat because they talk about electric motorcycles that are coming into Harley. Harley's going to start producing. And so it's just well-rounded, all different kinds of things. And it's a weekly podcast. And it was great meeting him, great connection. And it was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we're big fans of Dave, and the story of his National Podcast Day becoming International Podcast Day was super cool, because I think what he realized at that moment was this is bigger than what we thought it was. Right. Podcasting isn't just a fad. It's here to stay. It's on demand, what I want to listen to when I want to listen to it. And I think that's what's super cool about it. We're fans of International Podcast Day.
Yes.
And we promoted it before we even had a podcast. When we were still building our podcast, we were promoting it. And we will continue to support that day and share podcasting with others. Most of the people I talk to are like, I love listening to podcasts. Or I've been meaning to listen to podcasts. And so I'm like, well, get out your phone. Let's do it right now.
Right.
So Dave is one of the folks that we would definitely recommend any of his. He's got a few podcasts that I think he runs, but Waves of Tech is one that we're big fans of.
Right.
So
without further ado, here is Dave. So I'd like you guys to meet Dave Lee from the Waves of Tech. And Dave, can you tell us a little bit about you and your podcast?
Absolutely. Well, Brenda, it was quite interesting how we met right outside, as you mentioned, the VR trailer. We both had press passes, and I looked at your shirt and I was like, hey, she does a podcast. I do a podcast. We're both covering the event as press, and so that was really cool. So thank you for having me on your podcast. The Waves of Tech, we've been podcasting for almost 10 years now, and it's a tech variety show, tech grab bag. And so we discuss everything from social media and communications to the cloud to business acquisitions, and we really dive into a lot of the technology that's shifting and changing the way things are done in education, in software, in space exploration. So each week it's a little bit different week by week, and so you're going to get 3-4 fresh topics, and we do it in about a 30 to 45 minute segments every Tuesday we release.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you've been here a couple days now, right?
Yes.
Anything that has sparked your interest and that maybe got your curiosity up?
Yeah, some of the tools this year that I've seen, obviously VR still continues to grow. It's an innovation that's being used in healthcare and in architecture. We're seeing it now being implemented in education. So it's still in the ground phases, but it's improving. It's really nice to see. We're still seeing a lot of larger, 65 85-inch televisions that can be used for, integrated with Google and Microsoft suites to really change the way the classroom's set up and organized. One of the cool things I've been seeing now is there are a lot more information systems that are out there that are allowing teachers to collaborate with their students collectively, and also giving them the tools to control their environment as well, as far as locking down their devices, preventing them from accessing sites that they're not supposed to. And I've grabbed a couple interviews on the floor about that. And I think those are the really cool items as we venture into the one-to-one classrooms, and what tools and resources do teachers have. I think that's a really good one to have, is how do we collaborate, how do we use these technologies, and how ultimately can the teacher control that. I did enjoy speaking to Nearpod, which was a really cool. I'd never heard about them. I heard some students and other educators here saying, I need to get over to that session. And just what they're doing with professional development, what they're doing with Nearpod certified teachers and instructors, and just providing a platform for teachers to learn and engage, I think is one of the key things I've been taking away from here.
Right. Excellent. Well, anything else you're looking forward to? Have you been to any sessions? Or?
I hit up some sessions yesterday. Mostly today, I've been roaming the halls and just chatting with people, and as you said, trying to get some interviews here with some of the attendees, which is always a little bit more difficult than anticipated. I always enjoy the keynotes. I really enjoyed Meredith's opening keynote yesterday, how she mentioned, and she talked about how humanity connects us, and we're a lot more connected than we actually think we are. And I thought that was a really good message to kick off the conference. And that's ultimately what we're doing, is we're connecting, we're networking, we're learning from each other. And it's exciting to see what goes on in education. I've been to a couple educational conferences. This is by far the biggest one. And just seeing the energy and the excitement around educators. They can come here, see what programs, what platforms, softwares they're going to pay for. They can come and see what applications they can use free of charge in their classroom. And I think ultimately, when as a tech podcaster coming in here, not familiar too much with what goes on in education, seeing the excitement, seeing the tools that can be implemented, And just sort of the shift from when I was in high school and junior high, and even when I went to college, I was still using and sharing primarily Microsofts, and doing things in track changes. Now, what Google Drive has done for educational space with discounted devices and their cloud sharing platform, and what Google Drive and Google Classroom is doing, it's impressive. So that's been one of the most impressive things here, is coming and just seeing the energy that exudes all these educators. And for as much negativity that goes flying around within the media and within our local community about educators, you can't question their dedication to their craft and their focus on getting their students to be well prepared, both in life and in career. So these are great events. I really come to enjoy that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the energy has been great. And just talking to everybody and their experiences and what they're talking about, their stories about student engagement and how technology has changed their classroom in their career. It could be a 5-year career, it could be a 25-year career, but it's definitely made an impact in their career.
Yeah, every educator, teacher has the stories about the impact. And as you mentioned, we were talking about earlier, that it's what the teachers are learning from the teachers, which is what can be implemented, what can be orchestrated, collaborating, used in classroom. It's not just an administrator or a talking head from a sales rep or a marketing branch of a particular product line. It's what are the teachers learning and what are they using in their classroom? What has worked, what hasn't worked, and just being able to connect and network with those teachers is almost the most important thing when coming to an event like this.
Correct, exactly. So awesome to run into you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so random.
Fate,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So what's the best way for the people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, anytime they want to check out our podcast, The Waves of Tech, we are part of a network of podcasts. So you can go over to modernlife.network, and that is where all of our shows are hosted. You can follow our show on Twitter at The Waves of Tech, and also I am personally on there at AO Dave Lee. And any one of those methods to connect and listen to our shows. But ultimately, get out there and share one of the big things we talk about on our show is you may know a lot about tech. It's about passing that information on. And we encourage everybody to do that week in and week out. Share the knowledge you have with the people that are out there that need it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
So that was just a brief snippet of quick interview from Dave Lee with Waves of Tech podcast and kind of our recap on Q 2018. Excited to be attending ISTE, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. And don't forget, if you like this episode, if you like our podcast, please rate us and subscribe.
Share it with a friend. Tweet about it.
Absolutely.
You can tag us at all our different social medias, always at MyTechToolBelt.
We want to hear from you.
We do want to hear from you. What do you want to hear about? Let us know. Thanks for listening. And
we're out. I feel like I should hit the stop button.
Maybe. Good idea.